There is a green that contains more iron than spinach, 4.2 milligrams per 100 grams compared to spinach at 2.7. Its vitamin C content is 2 to 3 times higher than lettuce or kale, 60 to 100 milligrams per 100 grams. It survives hard frosts and light snow cover. It continues to grow when every other green in a temperate garden has died or gone dormant. It requires no cultivation, no fertilization, no pest management. It thrives in poor soil, and it self-seeds. This is chickweed, Stellaria media. From medieval times through the early 1800s, it was a standard vegetable in European kitchen gardens. A potherb, a salad green, eaten cooked like spinach, or eaten raw. It filled the hunger gap in late winter and early spring, when stored root vegetables were depleted and nothing else grew. Today it is classified as a noxious weed. Agricultural extension literature lists it as a lawn invader. Herbicide companies target it for elimination. Marketing materials show chickweed-infested lawns as problems requiring chemical solutions. Winter vegetable scarcity remains an unsolved problem in temperate climates. Fresh greens are imported from California and Arizona, or grown in energy-intensive greenhouses. Yet the plant that helped solve this problem for centuries is actively eradicated from the places where it grows freely. The green that survives winter was declared the enemy of winter lawns. Chickweed appears in medieval European herbals and agricultural texts from the 1200s through the 1500s. It was described as a common potherb. It was eaten cooked, added to soups, and served raw in salads when young and tender. In 1597, John Gerard published his Herbal, and he documented chickweed's culinary use, not as a famine food, but as a standard kitchen garden vegetable. In British cottage gardens from the 16th through the 18th centuries, people cultivated, or rather tolerated and encouraged, chickweed. It was allowed to grow where it wanted because it grew when it was needed most. In Germanic and Scandinavian regions, it was called vogelmeer, or bird's millet, and it was fed to chickens, hence the English name. It was also human food, especially in late winter when stored vegetables had been exhausted. This was the hunger gap, the period between the depletion of winter stores and the arrival of spring planting. Root vegetables kept in cellars would rot or sprout. Chickweed was available fresh, growing through snow and harvestable when nothing else was. European settlers brought this knowledge to colonial America, where chickweed naturalized quickly. It was used the same way, boiled as a pot herb, eaten raw, and applied as a poultice for wounds. The practice persisted in rural areas into the early 20th century. But it faded from formal agricultural and gardening literature. It was not foraged from the wild. Rather, it was allowed to grow where it wanted, because it grew when needed. The iron content has been measured at 4.2 milligrams per 100 grams of fresh chickweed. By comparison, spinach contains 2.7 milligrams per 100 grams, and kale contains 1.5 milligrams per 100 grams. This iron concentration is significant for populations with limited meat access or anemia risk. Vitamin C ranges from 60 to 100 milligrams per 100 grams. By comparison, spinach contains 28 milligrams per 100 grams, lettuce 9 milligrams per 100 grams, and kale 80 milligrams per 100 grams. Winter greens are particularly valuable when fresh produce is scarce. Calcium exceeds 200 milligrams per 100 grams, and chickweed also provides magnesium and potassium. The complete micronutrient profile is comparable to cultivated greens. The cold tolerance is biochemical. Chickweed produces anti-freeze proteins and other cryoprotectants, compounds that allow cellular function below 0 degrees Celsius. The plant continues photosynthesis at temperatures that kill lettuce, spinach, and kale. Growth timing fills a specific ecological niche. Seeds germinate in fall, and the plant overwinters as a low rosette. When soil temperatures reach 5 to 10 degrees Celsius in early spring, rapid growth begins, exactly when winter stores are exhausted. The yield potential is continuous. Chickweed forms dense mats that can be cut multiple times. It regrows from stem nodes, and each harvest stimulates new growth. It thrives in compacted and poor soil, and it is shade tolerant. No fertilization is needed, and no pest control is required. It self-seeds prolifically. It solves the hunger gap with biology, not technology. That is precisely why it had to become a weed. Before the 1850s, kitchen gardens were adjacent to homes. Mixed vegetables and useful plants grew together. There was no concept of weed-free aesthetics. Chickweed was part of garden ecology. Between the 1850s and the 1900s, lawn culture emerged. British estate lawns represented an aristocratic ideal, favoring grass monoculture. That aesthetic was imported to the United States, and broadleaf plants were reclassified. They were no longer seen as useful, they were called weeds. In the 1940s, 2,4-D was developed, a selective herbicide. After the war, it was marketed to homeowners for lawn care, and chickweed was targeted as a broadleaf weed. Suburban expansion accelerated through the 1950s, the 1960s, and the 1970s. The lawn became a status symbol, and garden culture shifted from food production to ornamental landscaping. A chickweed-covered lawn signaled failure. The seed industry focused on annual vegetables. Annual seeds generate recurring sales. Chickweed self-seeds. It eliminates the transaction. There were no commercial breeding programs and no seed packets. Agricultural extension services shifted their publications. Land-grant universities had once published information on useful plants. By the mid-20th century, the focus was weed control, and chickweed was reclassified from food to pest. Herbicide companies built business models on recurring chemical applications. Companies like Scott's and True Green positioned chickweed as a villain in marketing materials, the justification for annual treatments. Supermarkets began offering year-round produce. California lettuce and industrial spinach shipped across the country. The need for winter-hardy local greens disappeared in the consumer mindset. The lawn required an enemy. Chickweed was food until it was in the way of grass. The language in extension literature changed. Before 1950, USDA publications mentioned chickweed as edible. After 1950, the same institutions classified it as a troublesome weed, and culinary use was omitted. Herbicide product labels listed chickweed as a target pest, with brands like Weed B Gone and Ortho. Packaging showed images of chickweed-infested lawns as problems requiring solutions. Popular 20th century gardening books focused on weed elimination. Chickweed's edibility was rarely mentioned. When it appeared at all, it was buried in wild edibles sections, separate from vegetables. The plant's growth habit became a liability. It forms low-growing mats that spread rapidly. The aesthetic language shifted to words like invasive, aggressive, and unsightly. Those terms described incompatibility with lawns, not biology. By the late 20th century, knowledge of chickweed survived mostly in foraging subcultures. It was reframed as wild food, not a garden vegetable. That linguistic shift mattered. Wild implied primitive, something you ate when you had no better options. The organic gardening movement in the 1970s through the 1990s promoted heirloom vegetables and traditional practices, but it rarely rehabilitated chickweed. The weed stigma was too entrenched. Permaculture literature retained chickweed as beneficial ground cover and edible, but permaculture remained a niche practice. It was not reclassified because it changed. It was reclassified because lawns did not need food. The growth habit is incompatible with lawn aesthetics. It forms low-growing mats. Lawn culture requires grass monoculture. Chickweed's presence signals an unkempt property by suburban standards. The lawn care industry depends on recurring chemical applications. Chickweed's prevalence justifies those sales. If chickweed were accepted as food, the need for elimination would collapse. Harvesting requires hand-picking or cutting. It grows low to the ground and cannot be mechanized easily. Modern vegetable production is optimized for machine harvest. Chickweed is labor-intensive at scale. There is no branding potential. Chickweed cannot be trademarked or differentiated. The name itself carries a weed association. Compared to baby kale or spring mix, chickweed is generic and unmarketable. The leaves wilt quickly after harvest. They require same-day or next-day sale. Modern supply chains need a 5 to 7 day shelf life minimum. Consumer perception is the final barrier. Generations have been raised with chickweed as a lawn enemy. Reversing that stigma requires investment with no clear return. A vegetable that requires no purchase and grows where you do not want it cannot coexist with industries that sell control. Winter vegetable scarcity persists in temperate regions, from November through March. Supermarkets rely on imports from California and Arizona, drought-stressed regions, or on energy-intensive greenhouse production. Climate volatility is increasing, and supply chains face disruption. Chickweed's frost tolerance offers a resilient local winter green. It grows when imported lettuce cannot arrive. American lawns cover approximately 40 million acres. They require irrigation, fertilizers, herbicides, and mowing with fossil fuel equipment. Chickweed offers an edible ground cover alternative with zero inputs. Imported winter lettuce travels over 2,000 miles on average, while chickweed grows locally. Its iron content is higher, 4.2 milligrams versus 2.7 milligrams. Its vitamin C is higher, 60 to 100 milligrams versus 28 milligrams. It thrives in neglected spaces like sidewalk cracks, compacted soil, and shade. Urban and suburban residents without garden space can still access it. There is growing awareness of herbicide health impacts, from glyphosate to 2,4-D. Chickweed offers an alternative to chemical elimination. It is not removal, it is consumption. Foragers, permaculture practitioners, and homesteaders currently harvest chickweed, and the knowledge spreads peer-to-peer, but it remains absent from mainstream gardening advice and nutrition recommendations. The winter green that helps solve scarcity grows in every lawn. We just pay to kill it first. A winter green with superior iron content, superior vitamin C, and cold tolerance that allows growth through frost and snow. Zero cultivation is required. It was a standard vegetable for centuries. Now it is classified as a lawn weed that requires chemical elimination. Modern horticulture values monoculture aesthetics, mechanized harvest, branded seed sales, and shelf-stable transport. Chickweed excels in different metrics, including self-sufficiency, nutrient density per input, and winter resilience. These metrics have no market value. The culinary use is well documented in medieval herbals, in 16th through 19th century agricultural texts, and in early 20th century rural practice. The knowledge was never lost. It was removed from accessible channels. The biological reality has not changed. Chickweed still grows through frost and still produces harvestable greens from November through March. It still self-seeds, and it still requires zero cultivation. The question is not whether we should eat chickweed again. The question is what other foods were reclassified as weeds when they stopped generating transactions. The distance between vegetable and weed is not botanical. It is economic. Chickweed did not stop being food. It stopped being profitable. In a system where food must be sold, that is the same thing. If this vault opens something for you, subscribe to Green Vault. We are uncovering the systems the garden industry taught us to forget. The next vault opens soon.